Hi, welcome to Whiskey Fans. I'm Tony, and on today's episode, we're talking about our older knobs better. I'm talking about the whiskey from Jim Beam. Today, we'll take a look at Jim Beam Knob Creek 9 year, 12 year, 15, and 18 today. So, we'll do a blind tasting of all, and we'll see if age has anything to do with the taste. All right, two of these Knob Creeks we have today are standard, available, accessible in just about every market. That would be the 9 and the 12. And in my market in Indiana, the 9 year comes in at approximately $35, where the 12 year is around $65. And the 15 and the 18 are limited edition and they're tied to anniversaries. I know just this past year, we celebrated 30 years and they released the 18 year. And this is a series one. My 15 year is a batch series two, and I don't have the box with this one. It was just sold as is. The 15 I was able to pick up at SRP at $100, and I was able to pick up the 18 year for approximately $169. So all of these are available. The 18 I still see down at the distillery every once in a while. And you probably have secondaries in your marketplace too, and they're readily available. And they're not too marked up either, just because they're still standardly available. So these are all great offerings. I've had a chance to try all of them. And as mentioned, I'm going to blind. Mama T has poured them for me. We'll have them up here. We'll taste them, nose them, give a little bit of a feedback, and we'll decide if 35 versus 65 versus 100 all the way up to 170, if it's worth the price difference for the extra age in the barrel. So when we're looking at the aging process, whiskeys can be too young, and most typically you're going to get 2 years or higher to be a bourbon, a straight bourbon. And we look at the barrel, the wood, the new charred oak as an ingredient. And so it's starting to age, it's starting to go through its different cycles of the different temperature swings, especially in Kentucky. You do have cold winters and you do have hot summers. So that interaction with the wood is going to be more pronounced than if you go over to Ireland, for instance, or Scotland, where they don't have as big of swings, and you might see like Scotch, for instance, aging for a lot longer. And also, they're not typically using new charred barrels as we do with bourbon, which is a requirement. So it's really up to the master distiller to find that sweet spot of when enough's enough, when to take it out of the barrel. A lot of people like to say between 5 and 12 years, the bourbon has hit its spot. I know that that's a wide range, and others like to dial it in a little bit more. But going over that 12, you start to get a little bit hit and miss. And I know Jimmy Russell from Wild Turkey says it can get a little bit bitter. I know Brent from over at Four Roses, he says it gets more and more difficult to find that. It can become astringent and it loses those floral subtleties. So that's really what the master distillers need to choose when they're picking the barrels, even when you're coming into blending the age statement. We may have some barrels that could be with some of these bottles, even though it says 9, 12, 15, and 18, could be older. So the youngest barrel that was chosen is the age stated. So a lot of times in barrel bourbon blends, you'll have older bourbons, but you'll see maybe an age statement of 6 years. They typically use 15 and 18-year bourbons to counterbalance some of the youngness. And that's what is so unique about some of those blends. But here today, we've got these age stated, and we're going to see what the effect is. So we're just going to grab the first glass. These are all mixed. They're all random. There's a number on the bottom. Mama T has the key. She's the only one that knows what's in what. And so I'm just going to grab one here randomly and take a quick nose. All right. First one here. I'm not smelling any over oakiness here. It's a nice balance. It's a good sweetness. It's definitely hits. You can tell the at least 9 years or greater. It's a good bourbon. I would recommend this one. I'm just going to put this one up front just so I know where I am. And on to the second glass here. Now on this particular glass, I'm not getting much of a nose at all. So getting some of the vanilla, getting some sweetness from that. Not getting any over oakiness with this one either. If I were to say, I would say this was a little bit younger. So I'm going to put this, the first one I try is up front still. I'm going to dive into my next one. Let me do a little quick palate cleanse here first. Some water. Smell a lot more oak on this one. Not smelling the sweetness, the caramel like I did on the last one. Mm. Yeah, I'm digging into this one again. A little bit bitter. Definitely tell it has more age than the first two. Let's dig into some more water here. It seemed, it had some balance. It still had some sweetness, counteracted with some of the oak, but maybe not too much. Let me see what this last glass is. I can get some oak on this. I don't have my usual Glencairns, and I gotta just kind of look a little bit of a quick plug for glassware. SLB did a great segment. If you're not following SLB Drinks, I know over 100,000 subscribers do. Check them out on the glassware. The Glencairns just came back to be their favorite from a nosing and a sipping characteristic. And it's hard for me to get the nose on these that I do in my Glens. Well, that's interesting too. I felt that evolve, and that seemed to come across my palate and hit all spots from front to back. And I did feel it develop into the oakiness I expected, but I also did get some of the sweeter notes as well. All right. In addition to making sure you've got good glassware, also make sure you got backup corks too. You'll notice this one isn't like the rest of the knobs. This is actually an Old Forester one. The knob cork broke off, but no harm, no foul. It didn't go in. We were able to retrieve it quite easily, so it's good to keep some extras in reserve. So just wanted a quick recap. The first one I tasted was this glass here. It was the second one from the right, your left, and I was really well pleased with it from the start, which kind of did not guess that I would have that. I felt like I had some sweetness to it. I felt like I had a hint of age to it. I had some nice oak coming forward, but not too much oak. It was just really nice. And then I went to my second one here on the far left, your right, and I just got all sweetness. I got caramel, vanilla, and not a lot of oak whatsoever, which made me believe that this had to be younger. So if I'm just comparing two, I'm just going to go ahead and go out on a limb here since I know that we've progressed up in age. And I'm going to see glass number 3. I'm going to say that's the Knob 9. Is that right, Mama T? Yes. So no savant here. We know what bottles we're tasting. We know they progress, and we know characteristics change the longer they're in the barrel. So a little surprised that I didn't get anything. As I mentioned, the nose was very muted, and I think it's due to the glassware that I have. So this one I had in my third place in the rankings. And so as I move over to the third one I tasted, this was on my far right, and I felt this particular one was in my last place, and I felt this one was very oaky and didn't really have too much characteristics of what I tasted in my first or my second glass. I didn't get the nice sweetness like the vanillas and the caramels and such. And so that led me to believe that it's much older and it possibly set in the barrel for quite some time. but I don't want to confuse the 15 and the 18. So I wanted to also compare it to the last one I tasted. And I would say the last one I had, I would have it is right there neck and neck with the first one. It had a good sweetness, not a lot of sweetness, but it did have that. You could smell it on the nose, and you could definitely smell the age with the oak. It wasn't overly oaked. It was just nice, well-rounded and balanced. It hit all spots of my palate, and it just gave me a nice adventure and a good finish. And I would say from that standpoint, if I'm looking for a finish, I don't think the first one gave me that as much as the last one. So I think I'd give it a little bit more of an edge as it relates to the finish. But this glass on my far right, I said it was over oaked, didn't really have much sweetness at all, and wasn't enjoyable. And I've had this before, I do believe. I'm going to guess, and I'm going to ask if glass number 4 is the Knob Creek 15 year. You could probably look at a lot of forums and hear consistency in what I just expressed to you, that if you like oak, this might be your jam if that's all you're wanting. But for whatever reason, at the 15-year mark on this particular batch and run that we have here, it's just kind of a little bit too far for me. And I'm saying, based upon what we have left, we know that 9 and 15, the first one I tasted, which is glass number 2, I'm going to say is Knob Creek 12.
Correct.
And then that leaves the last one being Knob 18.
Correct.
And these are both excellent. And so if I'm saying like an everyday drinker is a $65 bottle, an everyday drinker, it might be for you. It is rather accessible. It is very damn good. And I think it rivals the 18. But the 18 was a very good release this year. It is delicious, gives you all those characteristics you would expect in a well-aged, rounded, balanced offering from Jim Beam. And I would say, just by the slightest margin for me, it's number 1 in my tasting round. But for $170 versus $65, I don't know if there's that great of a difference, but I sure do like it. And I'm not going to probably rush to buy another one, but I'm glad I do have it. So if you liked our video today, it would really help out the channel if you would like and subscribe, and even please drop a comment on which one you like best. And this will help out the community to guide us to a more pleasurable experience, to avoid, spending extra money where we might regret dropping $100 on the Knob Creek 15, even though we knew it was probably not a wise choice. But from the standpoint of where I am, I'm going to leave you with a cheers with the 12, which I feel is the best value here on my bar top. And cheers.